Let's see how we analyze an ABG, almost a daily affair, still holding a lot of confusion. Starting head on, first look at the pH. Normal range is 7.35 to 7.45. pH less than 7.35 is deemed as acidosis, while more than 7.45 is known as alkalosis. We all know. Acidosis and alkalosis are actually misnomers. They are used to denote excess of acidemia or excess of alkali in blood, that is alkalemia. So once you are sure whether it is acidosis or alkalosis, now you want to see whether it is respiratory or whether it is metabolic. So you look at PCO2 for respiratory abnormalities. The normal range is 35 to 45 millimeters mercury, while you look at bicarbonate for metabolic abnormalities, the normal range of which is 22 to 26 milliequivalents per liter. A pH less than 7.35, that is acidosis, with increased PCO2 is respiratory acidosis, while pH less than 7.35 with decreased bicarbonate is metabolic acidosis. On the other hand, pH more than 7.45 plus decreased PCO2 is respiratory alkalosis, whereas pH more than 7.45 with increased bicarbonate is metabolic alkalosis. So remember, in metabolic disturbances, pH and bicarbonate move in the same direction, and this is referred to as elevator effect. While in respiratory disturbances, pH and PCO2 move in the opposite direction, and this is referred to as seesaw effect. You can remember this because there is a seesaw pattern of breathing also. So seesaw effect is seen in respiratory abnormalities. Then you must, at the third step, try to find out whether or not the body is trying to compensate for the respiratory or the metabolic disturbances. Now, respiratory compensation for metabolic disturbance is done by the lungs. It occurs within a few hours, say approximately 3 to 6 hours. While metabolic compensation for respiratory disturbances is done by the kidneys, it may take a few days, around 3 to 7 days to happen. Once you are sure that the body is compensating, try to find out whether this compensation is partial or full. Now see, if you want to know whether the body is compensating, simply looking at the values of PCO2 and pH and bicarbonate would help you. But once you want to look at the fact that whether the compensation is partial or complete, then having a look at the pH would give you a fair idea. In metabolic acidosis, you calculate the compensation as follows. Expected PCO2 is 1.5 into bicarbonate plus 8 plus minus 2. This is also referred to as Winter's formula and is often asked in the exam. In metabolic alkalosis, PCO2 increases by 7 millimeters mercury for every 10 milliequivalents per liter increase in bicarbonate. In respiratory acidosis, for every 10 millimeters mercury rise in PCO2, bicarbonate increases in acute respiratory acidosis and by 3 in chronic cases, whereas for every 10 millimeters fall in PCO2 in alkalotic cases, bicarbonate decreases by 2 and in acute respiratory alkalosis, whereas it decreases by 5 in chronic respiratory alkalosis. So, whether the compensation is partial or complete can be ascertained by the pH itself. For example, if it is metabolic acidosis and PCO2 is less than 35 millimeters of mercury, that is, you know that respiratory compensation is taking place, but pH has yet not reached in the normal range. That is, it is not between 7.35 to 7.39. This compensation is partial. Whereas, if in the same scenario, the pH is between 7.35 to 7.39, the compensation can be considered to be complete. Remember, the body can never overcompensate. For example, in the above scenario, the pH can never reach up to 7.4 or even more than that just because of the respiratory compensation. This brings us to compensation limits. The maximum a parameter can compensate. In metabolic acidosis, PCO2 on compensation cannot decrease to less than 10. In metabolic alkalosis, PCO2 cannot rise above 60. In respiratory acidosis, bicarbonate can never increase beyond 40. and in respiratory alkalosis, bicarbonate can never fall to less than 10. Now suppose if the pH is more than normal, then what does it suggest? It suggests some kind of mixed disorder. We know that body cannot overcompensate. That is, the pH can never be more than equal to 7.4 in patients with primary acidosis, even howsoever much compensation may occur, because there are certain limits to compensation we had seen in the last scene. Now, so for example, if it is metabolic acidosis, that is pH less than 7.35, and PCO2 is less than 35 millimeters of mercury, that is some amount of compensation is occurring, but the pH is 7.4 or more, then what does it suggest? It simply suggests that metabolic acidosis, even though if it is existent, it coexists with respiratory alkalosis also. That is, it is a mixed metabolic acidosis with respiratory alkalosis. If acidosis and alkalosis are coexisting, the term mixed is used. If pH abnormality is present with both PCO2 and bicarbonate values explaining the same disturbance, then the disorder is referred to as combined disorder. For example, if pH is less than 7.35, that is acidosis is there, bicarbonate is less than 22, and PCO2 is also more than 45, then it suggests a combined metabolic and respiratory acidosis. This is a very simple example I have given. There are a few complicated ABGs where it is sometimes difficult to know just by seeing the values. You have to calculate the compensation then. So, and final point is, interpretation should always and always be done in light of an accurate clinical history and a keen clinical examination. Because at the end of the day, we have to treat the patient and not the ABG report per se. ABG is after all given by the machine. Now, if metabolic acidosis is present, one must need to calculate the anion gap, which is given by the formula sodium ions minus chloride plus bicarbonate, and the normal value of which is 12 plus minus 2 MEq per liter. It can either be increased or it can be normal. Now, why do we want to know this anion gap? Because knowing the anion gap helps us to narrow down the number of etiologies of metabolic acidosis. For example, increased anion gap metabolic acidosis is usually seen in four broad categories of illnesses. These are lactic acidosis, ketoacidosis, which is secondary to diabetes or starvation, toxins, for example, methanol, and renal failure. While most of the other etiologies, they lead to a normal anion gap metabolic acidosis, which is also referred to as hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. Anion gap also needs to be adjusted for hypoalbuminemia. Adjusted anion gap in this case is anion gap plus 2.5 into normal albumin, which is taken as 4.4 minus observed albumin. Anion gap, to remember, anion gap decreases by 2 for a decrease in serum albumin by 1 gram per deciliter. So now we understand that as a first thing we have to look at the pH and determine whether acidosis or alkalosis is occurring. Second thing, we have to see whether it is respiratory or metabolic. Third, we have to find out whether or not the body is compensating. Fourth, we have to see if compensating, then whether compensation is partial or complete. Fifth and sixth, we must delineate and rule out mixed and combined disorders. And finally, we must always and always interpret ABG in light of clinical history and examination. So, while we know that while determining pH, PCO2 and bicarbonate levels are very important to determine the acid-base status of a patient in an ABG, knowing oxygenation status also by determining the PaO2 levels, knowing the base deficit and lactate levels in patients with metabolic acidosis, knowing ionized calcium in neonates, especially with hypocalcemic seizures, and blood glucose values are also important parameters which are mentioned there in the ABG. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Thanks a lot.